Of the honor grade. Guard. Up. Advance. Left. Turn.
Please be seated.
I bid you all a good afternoon, and I thank you for coming here today to be a part of this service to remember Keith and Edna Ashmead. Your presence here speaks volumes to the family, your love and your support. Just being here means so much to them, and they take great comfort from that. And on their behalf, I thank you for attending this service. Jesus spoke these words: "Trust in God, trust also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I am going there to prepare a place for you. If I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be there with me. And you know the way to the place where I am going. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to God except through me." People have taken to calling this Jesus' farewell speech. He was getting his apostles, his best friends, if you will, getting them ready for the fact that he was not going to be among them physically any longer. They wouldn't be able to see him, touch him, hear him. He was moving on. But he says, it's not the end. I'm going to come back someday, and I'm going to gather you all up. We're going to go to a far, far better place than this. So I'm here to tell you today that it's not over for Keith and Edna. Just beginning. Things haven't been so good as it has been in the last couple of months for them. And I'm here to tell you also that they were taken from us tragically. I don't have to go over the details. You know how they left us. But I'm here to assure you that heaven was not caught by surprise. Heaven knew exactly when they were coming, and they were ready. Because Jesus said, I'm going to go prepare a place. I'll come back and get you. And you ought to see this place I've got prepared for you. In my Father's house are many mansions. Some say many palaces. Some say many rooms. I like mansions personally, but it's all there waiting for you. So as shocked as we were to hear that news that morning months back, heaven was ready, and they welcomed them and said, we've got a place just for you. At a time like this, people usually recite the 23rd Psalm, and I would invite you to recite it along with me right now. It gives peace and consolation at a time like this. Shall we all say together, please? The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Thank you. I've been dealing with one individual a little bit over the last couple of weeks. She put an awful lot of time and effort into this, and she did it with love, which was very, very obvious when I was visiting with her. And I'm going to ask her to lead off our list of speakers, the sister-in-law of Keith, Vicki Ashmead. Vicki, please.
This honor only because I'm the only other Ashmead in town. We're the Calgary contingent. The families, thank you so much for coming out tonight, this afternoon. And I'm so pleased to see the family. This pandemic's been a stinker, and we're looking and going, who are you? Anyway, as Bart said, this was such a shock, and we've been reeling and trying long distance to get ourselves into a position where we could do it right for Keith and Edna. They loved the Legion. This was their home away from home, and we were just delighted that right away both Legions wanted to put up the celebration today and to remember Keith and Edna. My family came back to Calgary in '88 with 3 children in tow, and we joined Keith and Edna, who had come to Calgary in '86. We had over 30 years of high days and holidays together. The Christmas Eve dinners with tortilla, pierogies, baked beans. We tried to make it as Canadian as we could, so we did all the this and that. I don't know that Edna liked the tortilla as much, but she kind of liked the pierogies. But it was funny in our household because my mother, who was a British war bride, and Keith, the Navy guy, kibitzed every time they got together. They loved each other. I've got written down here, larger than life Navy man. That's how I always thought of Keith. Keith entertained my children. Nod your head if you can remember Keith saying this. Shake your head, your eyes are stuck. That was my kid's favorite. And are you listening? That was the other one, but the kids just loved that. During my husband's illness, I couldn't have had a better friend and support. He was there for Ralph, and he was there for the family. That was Keith. Edna was wonderful with the kids. They always knew at Christmas, Auntie Edna brings the best gifts. Never socks, never underpants. It was best gifts ever. The last time we were together was Thanksgiving in October. Little did we know. And we actually had a really good visit. Dave, Keith, talking about how he got into the military and what it meant to him. And he told me a very quick story of when he was on ship, but they were in the Netherlands. And he was walking in uniform in Amsterdam, and he was overwhelmed. He had people there coming up to him and shaking his hand and thanking him. And one older gentleman said, "Please come." And he took him to his abode, and apparently there was a secret wine cellar, and he wanted to share a glass of wine with this Canadian Armed Force representative. That absolute, that stayed with Keith, and that was him, yeah. I wanted to mention his very good friend. Both Edna and Keith were very good friends with Ernie and Darlene Barker. And I asked Ernie yesterday, "Can I share this, Ernie?" Because he wanted to be up and talking with today too. But Ernie went on a cruise. And Ernie tested negative till he got to the boat. He tested positive. So Ernie spent his holiday isolated in this lovely hotel, he said, with a pool. He said it wasn't bad. But anyway, he was not well enough. He's still testing positive. He was not well enough to come tonight. But he has helped sort out, any of you who have been into Keith's garage, or Lord help you, his workshop room downstairs. Ernie and his son helped sort through all the tools and all of this. But Ernie and Darlene and Keith and Edna would, well, Darlene had a catering business, and they were often off doing this together. Ernie met up with Keith in Lahr, and that was a huge highlight in their lives. And yeah. I'm going to leave it at that. I know Richard, Edna's eldest son, is coming up, and I'm sure he'll refer to the time in Lahr. That's great. Thank you again for so much for coming.
Well done. Great job, Richard Law, Edna's son.
I don't know where to begin. Can you hear me in the back?
No.
No.
No? So I'll have to use the microphone? Much better? Okay. I don't know where to begin. To lose both of them at the same time was such a loss. To lose either of them would have been tragic, but to lose them both was heart-wrenching. Keith married my mom in December of '72, and although he wasn't my legally adopted father, he was definitely my dad in many more ways than just one. Vicki here mentioned the Barkers and also the Analas. Quite proud to go and see them here today as well. These are families that we knew back in Germany, and we're still friends and will remain friends forever. The only place Mom didn't like to go on tour was in Shelburne, Nova Scotia. Don't ask me why, but when Keith and Mom retired here to Calgary, they were most happy. Even though Mom's family was all from down east and her relatives are still all down east, she used to go and have a trip down to the coast every summer. And of course, hopefully she would stop on the plane and then get off here in Hamilton, where I live now, and visit with us. My wife Joanne is here with me today. Stand up for a moment, Joanne. And my son Simon, unfortunately, couldn't be with us today. So in spirit, Keith did have a grandson from our side of the family as well. I do have some words here to go and speak. Mom's sisters and blood relatives down east have given me a letter to go and say. and I'm going to read that to you now. Edna's sisters, there was the eldest sister, which was Sarah. She's in Dartmouth now, and Matilda's in Frenchman's Cove, Newfoundland. Alma Cluett is in Porter's Lake, and Barb is in Marystown, and right smack in the middle of those four is George Sam Cluett, and he's also a fisherman down in Frenchman's Cove. So without further ado, let me just go and read what they had to go and say. From the Cluett family in Newfoundland. Our hearts were doubly broken on that dreadful evening of November the 8th. We not only lost our sister, but a brother as well. Everyone considered Keith a member of their family. He was much beloved. Keith was a very important part of our family, and he was loved beyond measure. Our sister was the patriarch of our family, and yes, she could be bossy and did love to give advice. Did we listen? No, not likely. Well, maybe sometimes, but how I wish I could hear both your voices now. Our hearts are broken, but we know you have now met up with the family members that went before you. And Edna and I know your reunion with our brother Ira must have been something to behold. Rest in peace, Edna and Keith. Watch over us until we meet again. And with that, I'll give it back to our chaplain, Barb.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Richard. Bless you.
Thank you.
Keith's brother, Kent Ashmead, please.
Welcome, everyone.
Hello, my name is Nicole Steffler. Thank you. My dad, Kent Ashmead, Keith's brother. Keith was my uncle. My dad obviously is having a difficult day, we all are. But I'd like to read what my dad has written. He has wanted to put some things together for the family and our way of saying thank you to everyone for coming. This is my dad's words. My name is Kent Ashmead. I'm the second youngest of the family of 5, with Keith was the oldest. On hearing of this unspeakable passing of Keith and Edna's deaths, it was a shock, to say the least. Our mother passed away one day before Keith's 8th birthday, with Ralph being the youngest at only 3 years old. It was a very unimaginable time for all of us, especially our father. The 5 of us have little or no remembrance of her, only from what our father told us. Our farm was 6 miles west of Stony Plain. Our country school was 1¼ miles away, which we walked till the bus started in 1951. The home was comfortable, as we had no power, no running water. We had wood and coal. That was a source of heat for our cooking. Summers, water was fetched from a slough. Winter, it was melted snow. Our grandparents on our mother's side were very much involved in our raising, as was our church organization, and they came a number of times. Each summer, they put the home back in order, not to, at the least, the extra good food. That was something to remember. What I remember is my dad saying they were all up to no good during those times, 5 kids alone in a farmhouse. Our father worked out in the summer on country road crew, in winter at a logging camp as a cook. One winter, he took Keith as a cook's helper to help his income and to support the farm. I recall at least 3 or 4 times he hired a homemaid, but with this environment, no utilities, and 5 young children, they always moved on, sometimes only after a few weeks. The summer of '56, Dad took all of us on a trip, and we got as far as the Soyuz. Had finance difficulty, and we all went to school in a Soyuz. Dad got a job in Oliver, and Keith also worked at a welding shop there. In Oliver, Keith met up with a recruiting station for the force, and that was the start of his career. In 1958, we came back to Stony Plain. Keith enlisted in the Navy, and that was the last we saw or heard of him for about 7 years. Dad made contact with the Armed Forces in 1964, and he came west for my wedding. Upon the marriage to Edna with her 2 boys, Rick and Mark, they were stationed in Lahr, Germany for 8 years. My family and I went, and we spent 2 weeks in Germany. I remember that trip well. From Germany, they came back to the base in Shelburne, Nova Scotia for 8 years. From Nova Scotia to Calgary with 2 of Edna's cats and Keith's beloved dog Snoopy. There they stayed till his retirement. Keith and Edna's hospitality came through in many times, helping our nephew Brett at their place and on completing his career. All of the Ashmeads will never forget the countless trips and support he showed, and in support of our youngest brother Ralph and his wife Vicky and their family in his treatments with cancer until his passing. The last 25 to 30 years have been very rewarding. In all of our friendships, we were always getting together at least 1 or 2 times a year. The many times we got together, Keith and I solved all the sorts of complicated world wishy-washy troubles, and he always took great pride in our grandson's achievements, and they acknowledge his wisdom. Our family, Edna's family, friends, Legion, we will forever miss. His friendly personality, you will be forever missed. On August 13, Keith, on his birthday, we will be laying him to rest in our parents' grave site near Heatherdown, near Onaway, Alberta, and we thank you all for coming.
A nephew of Keith is Brett Mortensen, please.
My name is Brett. I'm Keith's sister's son. And just a quick show of hands, who here knows Gizzard? Who here has been bit by Gizzard? You weren't truly family unless you got bit by their dog, and many of us have. We're here to talk about Keith, the delicate, sensitive, soft-spoken, and shy uncle. We're here to talk about Edna, a bit of a pushover, soft-spoken, easygoing, and never complains. I had the pleasure of being in Germany when Keith was also posted there. My mother and father, we also lived in Lahr with them. And that's really where I got to know them so well. Edna worked at Canex. It's like a military exchange for troops that are overseas, and she was in kind of an administrative office. I used to come in she would give me money for treats. I think Edna also began to get a cold in Germany as Jägermeister began to appear in the fridge. Jägermeister, as we all know, is a liqueur for when you're not feeling too well. And that cold has lasted many, many years. Their homes always had curling brooms in it, the old school ones. It was always so much fun to go over there. I got to meet Edna's sons, Mark and Rick. I remember distinctly Mark kneeling on my chest. So he was a bit rougher than I was at that age. Keith, I remember his Ford Bronco, and he took my brother and I skiing one time, just us, and it was the best trip ever. We lost Keith early in the day, and my brother and I just got to play on the slopes in the mountains. We later found Keith stuck in a pub, patiently waiting for his nephews. Keith was a big, fierce guy. He is my hero. I moved to Calgary, and I got to live with Keith and Edna for a short time. I have some bragging rights. I was the only one that Edna would let use her washer and dryer. I also come from a military background, and I think she liked that and allowed me the privilege of using her washer and dryer unsupervised. I remember setting the table for Keith, and he would always tear into me because I forgot his giant fork. Keith did not like eating with a standard fork. He has a special one, and it's massive because he can just grab it and shovel. Keith taught me how to mix his rum early on, how he liked lots of ice, and to this day, that's how I take my rum. Keith and I used to make his lunch for him before he went to work, and his bread was always sitting in the dish rack thawing out. He kept his bread in the freezer, would take it out the morning of, put it in the dish rack to allow it to thaw. And that's where I went to make his sandwiches. We all know how big and tough Keith is, big man. I was with him when his beloved dog passed away. And yeah, needless to say, he showed his love for that dog, and I'm glad I had the privilege to be there at that moment with him. Keith took me to Stampede for the first time. We had lots of little adventures, him and I, and these are just great times for me, great memories. Keith and I, he helped me hand make my bed. And I don't mean make the sheets. We actually built the bed together. And it was just so nice watching my uncle work and learning from him. I was able to, with my Uncle Keith, spend some time with my Uncle Ralph before he passed. And it was nice to be part of that too, to be with both my uncles, especially at that time. Uncle Keith came home one day and told me, hey, I can get you a job at British Steel. Where Keith worked, he was driving steel all over the province. And as he walked me through the plant, there was a bunch of people gathered around a machine. I went in, I got the interview, I got the job. And I asked, how did this job become available? The previous operator that I was taking the job over for lost both his arms in that machine, and this is my uncle looking after me. Needless to say, I managed to be a steel worker without losing any appendages. My time with Edna was equally special. Probably some of you don't know this, but she enjoyed thrifting very much. And I got to go around with her, and that's where I learned to enjoy thrifting, particularly Value Village. Bingo. She enjoyed a little bit of bingo too, once in a blue moon. I enjoyed cooking with Edna. Obviously, I enjoyed the use of her laundry machine as well. When Edna had, I'm not going to call them dinner parties, when she had parties at her home, Canada Day, things like that, Edna worked the room, I got to work the kitchen. So while they're out spending time with their dear friends, I would be serving drinks and bussing, and it was just a lot of fun to see that. When they got to the new house, the house that they're in now, Keith was so excited to show me the big tub that they had downstairs, a massive tub with jets and things like that. And all day long, myself and my girlfriend, that's all we were thinking about is this crazy tub. And just before bed, we fired up the tub. We started filling it up. I sat in it, and a big grin on my face. I was so looking forward to this. And then my friend fired the tub up, and she started laughing at me. I was covered in black, and Keith and Edna heard us laughing upstairs, and they thought, ooh, these two are having a good time. What had happened, they never told us they had never used the tub before, and we got to clean it out for them. Keith and I used to daydream. I am winding down. One of the things that we had a plan to purchase a trawler together, big fishing boat. And we were going to just tour the Queen Charlotte Islands. Just a couple of bachelors, when that was what we thought was our destiny. Two of us just chugging along, and I will try to do that. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you, Brett. Thanks for the love. And you made me feel special too. Apparently, I'm the only one in the room who hasn't been bitten by gizzards. So I feel a special distinction. Lauren LeBlanc, please, their granddaughter. Up Edna.
Also Ben, which is the grandson. Today we are here to celebrate the lives of Edna and Keith Ashmead, but to us, they were Grammy and Grandpa Keith. My brother Ben and I spent a lot of time growing up at their house, spending summers playing in the backyard and gardening with Grammy, making pancakes with Keith, and he would yell at me because they would still be lumpy. We would go to pancake breakfast during Stampede, and we would go for turn rides in Grandpa Keith's truck. These are just a few of our favorite memories. Grammy spent some of her time babysitting while Ben and I were there visiting. To this day, the relationships we built with Sarah and Renee and their mom Nancy will always be special and long-lasting because of the time we spent with them, with Grammy and Keith. Grammy and Grandpa Keith were a big part of our lives. They always supported my mom and took the time to always support Ben and I. We went on many trips with both of them. We went to Waterton, we went on camping trips, we went to San Diego, but our favorite one was the time we went to Disneyland. Having our grandparents there was just made the trip that much more special. On our way home, Ben would have been around 5 years old, and he really loved his Mickey Mouse. Well, when we got off the tram and we got to the airport, Ben realized that he forgot his Mickey Mouse in the rental car. And Grandpa Keith instantly turned back around and said, if I miss the plane, go on home without me. I'm getting his Mickey Mouse. That was exactly the man that Grandpa Keith was. He sewed my skating costumes. He was always front row with the camera. He was blocking people's views, sometimes making people mad and embarrassing Ben and I, but he didn't care. He was proud of us, and he was there to show it. Grammy and Grandpa Keith were two of the biggest supporters throughout our lives. They were there for sporting events, band concerts, and graduation. We will miss them every day, but they will always be with us through the many fond memories that we have together.
Good job, Mark. Lacey Cribb is a niece of Edna.
Hi everybody, I'm happy to be here. I came down from Fort Saskatchewan today so I could be here and represent my family's side, along with Rick as well from the Cluett family. And just to give you an idea, my mom is the youngest of the Cluett sisters, my Aunt Edna being the oldest, and this is the first loss that we've had on our side of the family since my grandmother passed. So it's been tough. And my sisters, or my aunts, they all know I'm here, my cousins, they've sent me their support, their love, their kindness, everything to help me stand in front of you today and share some stories with you that I hope help kind of put our hearts at ease during this tragic time. And I was actually the person that was contacted by the police that day. They were looking for a person, and it just so happened to be that my aunt and uncle were with us on Thanksgiving, which had put my name front and center in some of the contacts that they had seen in their phone, which I was happy to play that part for both sides of the family, to make those connections and have those conversations. So to talk about our most recent visit though, in Thanksgiving, we sat around my table, and my parents come and visit every year since I've moved here in 2009. And every time they visit, it's a must. We have to get together with Aunt Edna and Uncle Keith, whatever that meant, whether it was an hour as we're like driving by, going to Banff because I wanted to share the lovely Alberta with my family, or if it was coming up and staying the night in my house when I was living alone, and now I have two babies, and they met both of those babies. And Gizzy, my cat actually attacked Gizzy, and my Aunt Edna thought my cat was the most evil thing in the world for doing so, and was like, get your cat down, look, he's stalking my dog. Like, she was freaking out that the dog was, or my cat was after her dog, which was kind of funny. And Uncle Keith always tinkered with something in my house. The most recent, he had taken apart the drain in my sink, telling me which pieces I need, and I'm like, I really don't care about this right now. But that was just the kind of way they were. They just wanted to help. And Edna shared a story, and I don't know if the lady is here or not, but she collected a lot for heart and stroke. And her and this lady were doing their rounds, and she was sharing at Thanksgiving just in October. They were doing their rounds, and the man opened the door, and he was like stark naked. And the other woman just like almost fell flat on her face. She was like, I can't deal with this, and just kind of turned around, looked away. And my Aunt Edna proceeded with the speech, asking for a donation. And I asked her, I was like, did he donate? And she couldn't remember. That was so funny to share. And we had one of the best times in all those times that we've got together over those years, that since I moved to Alberta, and before that, of course, the visits to Newfoundland. We had one of the best times together. We drank a lot of wine, like it was crazy. There was wine coming all the time, and even Uncle Keith brought up like 6 or 8 bottles of wine for my mom to send back to Newfoundland. Don't even ask, that's a thing. But that all happened, and my aunt has got me drinking German wine ever since I could drink, and teaching me how to pick out a good white German wine and the ones that she liked. So we love that. And one of the stories, this is the story I'll kind of end with, she shared about when my grandparents, who are both passed, obviously, they had visited Germany in the 70s. They went over to see Aunt and Uncle Keith, and somewhere along the route, their flights got changed to the point that they weren't going to be arriving where they were supposed to be arriving. And I'm sure at the time my grandmother was very, very worried about what are we going to do when we get there. And my aunt and uncle, of course, they knew. They drove however many hours it was they needed to drive to get to the place where my grandparents were landing. And my grandparents walked in and said, "Oh my goodness, we didn't think you'd be here." And of course, Uncle Keith and Edna are like, "Why wouldn't we be here? We're going to be here." And that's what I picture when, they were taking that day that my grandparents were there along with everybody else that you've lost before, welcoming them to that next part of their journey. So thank you.
Good, Lacey. Good job, thank you. We've come to the end of our scheduled speakers, but the family has suggested we have what you call an open mic session. Is there anyone who has a memory or a thought that they'd like to share? Something tender, something silly? Yes, please.
I'll keep this one light because it's related to Edna and Keith's days as basically your nannies. There's a few of the, also I'll call it graduates of the program, because it was quite rigorous, especially when the wooden spoon came out. You knew you were in trouble, but one thing, as younger generations sometimes are accused of not being very disciplined, I think we learned very quickly that was not going to be tolerated with Edna. So I got just great memories of that. Keith calling my sister Black-Eyed Susan is stuck in my head forever. Unfortunately, I can't really get into the context of that here, but no, just wonderful people, and it's unfortunate they're it's hard to say this, but they're gone way too early. Don't worry, I'll pull out of this, but. But yeah, I think the last great memory of those two were at my 30th birthday a couple years ago, and just the jokes and the humor, it'll never die. And that's the takeaway for me today, is sharing that with all of you, and really what a blessing to have them in our lives.
I live at the Sienna Park Green Village, and I would just like to say to everyone, we were very fortunate to have Keith and Edna in our community. They both volunteered. They were great people. And for me, I sat in their driveway of their garage on many afternoons drinking that white wine.
I forgot to mention something. I'm wearing the flag of Newfoundland in honor of my aunt, and I'm wearing a bolo tie. Keith, when he left the military, when he wasn't in uniform and doing his life of service, he never wore a tie. He always wore a bolo tie. So I wanted to make sure that I wore one today for him as well. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
I don't even think I can get through this. Keith was my crusty old chief. I used to call him Grumpy Bear. I met him in 1993 when he came to work with me as my chief. And he sort of looked at me, took one look at me and said, "I eat junior officers." Really? All right, challenge accepted. We worked together for 3 years. I have so many fond memories. And yes, a lot of it was they were good times. I still remember some of his words, but now they escape me. They were said early in the beginning. Are you listening? You listening, girl? So yeah, I listened. We crossed swords, but we were good friends. And that friendship carried on. And when Lacey contacted me by accident, purely by accident, and I was there like, what's going on? What happened? What do you need? Do you want me to contact Edna? And there's this pause. Keith and I were supposed to have a rum on November 11th. How dare you miss that date? They were both loves. They were over at my house, and yes, I have a permanent scar from Gizmo. Keith asked me, I asked him to make me a portable grooming table that I could take to dog shows. So he says, "All right, I'll make you that if you groom my dog." I'm like, okay. And he goes, brings it over. It's this 3.5 pound little, you guys can imagine what I'm thinking. Anyways, I got through the groom, did everything. I had one toenail left. One toenail. And he went psycho. Started wrapping himself up around the noose. Of course, I quickly unhooked him and held him out here. Keith's sitting there going, "Do you need some help?" And I must have loosened my grip just so ever. And he flew at my face. I actually thought there was a chunk taken out. It wasn't a chunk, it was a flap. So all the way going back, I said to Keith, he's like, "Oh my God." And there was just blood everywhere. So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna go into the bathroom and see the damage. Smack, smack, smack. And he goes, "You want me to take her?" Nope. Got back into the bathroom, took a look and went, that's gonna leave a mark. So I cleaned it up. Keith goes, I shoved a baby wipe there, kept it there, went back, hooked the dog up, and he goes, "You sure you want to do this?" I said, "I'm getting that last nail." I got the last nail. Keith took him out to his car. I went upstairs and soaked my face in vodka. And after that, crazy glued it. Yeah, I'm not necessarily sane. But neither was Keith. Those two will be memories in all of our hearts. I'm very proud to have been able to have the opportunity and the privilege of serving with him and working with him. He didn't work for me, we worked together. It was a team. And then one last story. When we were at the Nova Scotia Tattoo, we were working with the Australians, an Australian cutlass team. And so we trundled all over there, the producer, everybody, and they went to introduce me. I was in civilians. Keith was right behind me, as he always was, right at just by my right shoulder. And the producer introduces me and says, you can give Alex, she's the director, you can give her the music. And the guy starts to reach over my head and give Keith the music. Keith's like, no, her. Short shit. You give it to her. And he goes, no, I give it to the man. Keith goes, she is the man. And the guy looked at me and he sort of said, Keith's like, don't tangle with her. Just don't, okay? I don't. And the guy goes, I'm not giving it to her. She's nothing but a bloody Sheila. I turned around and I said, well, this bloody Sheila is going to grab the music out of his hand. And I said, this bloody Sheila is going to take you out back. We'll meet out back and I'll take that cutlass and I'll show you where I can put it. And Keith went, you didn't. You shouldn't have done that. He goes, oh, you weren't listening. You weren't listening. Anyways, Keith, Edna, we have to watch.
Excellent. Thank you. At this time, I would like to turn the program over to the Royal Canadian Legion Honor Guard.
Honor Guard, stand up. Attention.
Sergeant at Arms.
Sir.
Post the guard.
Guard, right, turn. Quick, march. Guard, halt. Left, turn.
It is an honor for us to conduct a Legion Poppy tribute to our fallen comrades, Keith and Edna Ashmead. In the presence of the last earthly remains of our comrades, Keith and Edna Ashmead, whose loss we mourn, but whose spirit still lives, may we as citizens and members of the Royal Canadian Legion be charged anew with the full sense of our duties and responsibilities to our country and our organization. May we ever strive to uphold the principles of selfless service which led us to serve our God and our country in time of war and in peace, so that we may continue to serve even unto death. For those who can, will you please stand? Sergeant at Arms.
Sir.
Last post.
Here you go. Last post. Here, Rouse.
They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. The age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Please be seated. We will now place our copies on the pillows, starting with myself, the guard, the minister, the youth, and the family.
Guard, stand at gate.
claim their poppies, and then we'll dismiss the honor guard. And the remainder of the congregation can come up afterwards and for your poppies, please.
Blood red.
The blood red poppy of Flanders we have placed is a symbol to those who have served, that they will never be forgotten. The poppy was immortalized in the World War I poem in Flanders Fields by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae from Guelph, Ontario. Lieutenant Colonel McCrae was a student, doctor, and soldier. Sergeant at Arms,
Sir.
prepare to march off the guard.
Guard, attention! To the family, salute! Attention! To the fallen, salute! Attention! Guard, right turn! Quick march!
For having us.
Usually at a time like this, we use a time-worn phrase that so-and-so, or specifically Keith and Edna, have gone to a better place. Indescribable, better place. There was once a family of water beetles. They lived in a little pond, a small pond, and the sun heated the water, so it was just lovely. And they lived there, they swam around there, and they slept under a water lily every night. Life was good. And one of the water lilies, a young fella, he noticed that every now and then, one of the older fellows would go to the edge of the water lily, climb out of the water, climb up on top of the water lily, and never be seen or heard from again. And he said, I don't know why they do that. They climb up, they go outside there, and they never come back and tell us what it's like. Well, when I get big and old, I'm going to go up there and come back and tell them what it's like. And he did get older, as we all do. One day he climbed up the side of that water lily, and he started pulling himself up over the edge of that water lily. It was tough. And he's pulling and he's pulling, he gets up on top of the water lily. Oh, I'm going back to tell him it's beautiful up here, but I'm just going to have a nap for a while. And he lay down, and he woke up, and he was a dragonfly. Wasn't able to go back under and tell them. He said, boy, it's wonderful up here. I guess they're just going to have to wait and see how good it is up here. And I know of two folks who can tell you how good it is up there. This comes to the end of our program. Thank you for being a part of it. You may come up at the end of the program and place your poppies on the cushion. Look at all the mementos that have been put up by the family, and no need to rush out immediately. You can stay here and mix and mingle with the family. And we say thank you for coming today. And can we all say in unison a prayer that the Lord himself taught us to pray? We say together, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you for coming. God bless you. Good day. Thank you. Thank you.
It was great. Pretty mean off the setup, I gotta say. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I know. Well,
Go to a pub, which one? Or we could stay sober. On the Ashmead side. I think we'll do from you and let all the Ashmead.
yeah.
Nice little
Nicely done.